The David Pakman Show at davidpakman.com.
Welcome to the bonus show. Saudi Arabia's cabinet earlier this week approved a measure criminalizing sexual harassment. The state news agency SPA is reporting that just weeks before a decades-old ban on women driving is set to expire, sexual harassment has now been criminalized. And the way things work in Saudi Arabia is the legislation now needs to be a royal decree needs to be issued in order for it to become the law. And this is yet another one of these reforms that Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman has initiated. And the idea is the modernization of Saudi Arabia. Prince Mohammed also wants to diversify the economy away from oil exports in Saudi Arabia and open up the sort of sheltered lifestyle of many in Saudi Arabia by easing social rules, promoting entertainment. And the anti-harassment measure is sort of part of that. It was approved Monday by the Shura Council advisory body. And you can now, if and when the royal decree is issued, get a jail sentence of up to 5 years and an $80,000 equivalent, US dollar equivalent fine. And, you know, I want to believe that this is all being done in good faith, Pat. You know, I mean, the Saudi Arabian regime is one of the most extreme Islamic regimes in the world, right? When you look at what's the most extreme, Turkey would be not on the most extreme, as an example. At the most extreme would be like Saudi Arabia, Hamas, for example. That's what's on the most extreme end. I would love to believe that this is quite simply the modernization and moderation of Saudi Arabia. At the same time, we know that the Saudi Arabian royal family is not stupid. They value stability in the Middle East for business reasons. They value, they understand sort of PR. And I just don't know if this is actually what it is at face value or if this is something else.
Yeah, and you know, there are some good things coming out of Saudi Arabia now, like women will be able to drive soon and attend movie theaters, and that's all well and good.
Progressive.
But at the same time, just about a week ago, they jailed, I think, 12 female activists for, you know, speaking out. And, you know, that's obviously an infringement on free speech. Interestingly enough, this sexual harassment, making it a crime, also is an infringement on free speech in a way. And it's a little bit more dicey, I know. But harassment, as long as it doesn't go into, like, actual assault, right? You're just saying comments and maybe catcalling, that sort of thing, I think would be protected under the First Amendment, at least here in our country.
Right,
you know?
yeah. So you're saying in the United States it would be a free speech issue. Certainly not in Saudi Arabia, that we know.
Yeah, but of course. But, you know, free speech we think of as something that should be a human right. And so maybe it's like 2 steps forward and 1 step back in a way. And it also does look like a very severe punishment for such a crime.
Yeah, it seems very, very extreme. And, you know, this is one of those things where it's not that we shouldn't care about sexual harassment. It's in context, what does it mean when you can go to prison for 5 years for sexual harassment that is not sexual assault? And that doesn't mean, that's like saying, I don't think that you should kill birds, but I don't think you should get life in prison for killing a bird, right? I'm not defending the killing of birds. Killing of birds isn't good. But it seems that it would be sort of out of whack for the penalty to be life in prison. In the same way, I question $80,000 and or 5 years in prison for sexual harassment that is not sexual assault. I'm just asking the question.
I feel like it's also a little bit subjective too, right? It's open to interpretation. So maybe they could find a way to use this law to jail political opponents.
Sure.
I hope, you know, my cynicism doesn't stand up and this is all being done in good faith. But there are reasons to be concerned, I think.
Taking multivitamins. Is it good for you or is it not good for you? What is the placebo component of multivitamins and supplements? We've covered some studies about this before. There is another study about this from the University of Toronto in partnership with St. Michael's Hospital. And they did a review, a sort of meta-analysis of 179 studies on popular vitamin supplements published between 2012 and 2017. They looked at a lot of different supplements. They also looked at vitamins, vitamin A, B1, B2, B3, also known as niacin, B6 and B9, which is folic acid, vitamins C, D, and E, and then also mineral supplements like beta-carotene, calcium, iron, zinc, magnesium, selenium. And what it turns out is that the most commonly consumed supplements, which are multivitamins, vitamin D, calcium, and vitamin C had no effect on a person's risk of suffering a heart attack, stroke, heart disease, or early death. So, few different things we have to think about here. Number one, these are the same results that we're increasingly seeing with studies, and this is a meta study, a review of studies, so that does make sense. One question is, are the people who decide to take multivitamins and these supplements already healthier, meaning that it doesn't appear as though the vitamins give them any benefit, because what really gives them benefit is that they are healthier people that are choosing to take the multivitamins? That's one possibility, and that can be sort of hard to suss out sometimes. Correlation, causation, etc. The other sort of theme that sometimes exists in these studies is the idea that, for the most part, it's not that the vitamins and supplements don't have some health benefit, but it's that most people are receiving the amounts of those things through their diet, and thus there's no marginal additional benefit from taking the supplements. But it appears that that's accounted for in this meta-analysis. And the supplements that did show some benefit were folic acid, B vitamins containing B6, B12, and folic acid, and that those did seem to lower risk of heart disease and stroke. And that overall, it seems that, once again, the best thing is a healthy diet that includes fruits, vegetables, and other food items that naturally provide the vitamins and minerals that people need. Not hugely surprising, right?
Yeah, I don't take a multivitamin myself, although I do take B12 because B12 is the one thing that you can't get from a vegan diet. It's only found in animal products. I guess if we were living out in the wilderness, you could find it in the dirt on plants. But since we live in a society that washes its plant and all of its food, you don't get it through a natural diet, so I got a supplement. So I'm happy that at least, you know, I'm getting the benefits from that, and my heart is going to be okay from it. But I don't think it's hugely surprising. It's always interesting when you look at the multivitamins and you see that, you know, the vitamin C content is 4,000% of your daily value. You got to know that you're just peeing all that stuff out.
Right. Yeah. There's something like, I think who knows if this is even true, but I thought that the body can only absorb like 500 milligrams at a time. So unless you're taking it throughout the day, taking that huge dose at once doesn't really do anything. Although, of course, there are those who are more sort of, what would be the word, sympathetic to what's called CAM, complementary and alternative medicine, who say, no, the massive dose of the vitamin C does do something. I don't really know that it does. But have you ever tried that artisanal dirt that's super, super high in B12?
Oh, yeah. I mean, like, you know, just for a treat every now and then. I put it on my pudding. It's kind of like a nice chocolate topping, but I can't have it every day because I don't want to spoil myself too much. Weird segue here, but when I feel like I'm going to get sick, I'll have a whole bunch of vitamin C, like either orange juice or I'll take the pills or what have you. And I feel like it does help me fight off the cold or whatever I feel like I'm getting.
Yeah, I think that's placebo. I don't think it does anything.
You think so?
Yeah, I think so.
You think it's placebo, like I'm not actually getting sick, or that it's not working and my body would otherwise fight it off?
I think your body fights it off in the exact same way, but the placebo effect would make you experience, would make your subjective experience of the symptoms not as bad. That would be my guess.
We should clone me.
Yeah.
And one of me will be a constant who feels like he's getting sick and won't take anything. The other will have a whole bunch of vitamin C, and we'll see what happens.
No, that actually would not be a good test. The way you would need to do it is you would need 3 clones, actually. You would need one which takes nothing, and then the other 2 both take the same powder or pill, but they can't know who's taking the real vitamin C and who's taking the placebo vitamin C. And then you would compare all 3, because you want to account not only for placebo effect, but also for spontaneous remission, right? The fact that you would eventually fight the cold off without taking anything anyway. So anyway,
well,
that's the way you would really do it.
I mean, having 3 clones is pretty unrealistic,
I know,
David.
Yeah. But this is actually, I've been reading a lot about how the real people like to say, the advocates of homeopathy say, we've never really tested homeopathy. We don't know if it works. The good tests actually compare spontaneous remission to individuals that are randomized to in a double-blind manner, meaning the prescriber doesn't know whether they're getting the real homeopathy, and the patient doesn't know whether they're getting the, quote, real homeopathy. That's really the only way to test it. And when you do, there's no benefit over placebo to homeopathy. But a story for another day, maybe for an episode in a pseudoscience miniseries someday. Who knows? Very briefly, there's another one of these televangelists who preaches the prosperity gospel, who has asked his followers to send donations so he can buy a $54 million private jet. This is Jesse Duplantis, who runs Jesse Duplantis Ministries. He wants a new Dassault Falcon 7X. It's a 3-engine jet, beautiful jet. These are really, really nice. Most of these little private jets are 2-engine jets. This is a tri-jet, and it's a jet I'm familiar with because I know a couple aviation bloggers who have had the chance to fly on it. And listen, he says this one will take him farther because it has better fuel efficiency and et cetera, and he wants people to pray about it, but also, most importantly, hand over the cash so he can get this private jet. It is just as cringeworthy as all of us would imagine, and I think this is actually a guy. There was recently an old video that went viral when he was getting his original private jet, which now is like small potatoes, right? I mean, the thing's only got 2 engines, for crying out loud. This is just disgusting. I mean, these guys are grifters of the worst kind and successful at it, I must say.
Yeah, I call it a pay-to-pray scheme.
Yeah.
What's interesting is he's had 3 jets before. One he got in the 90s, one in 2004, and one in 2006.
Yep.
So what happened to the one he got in 2004? I mean, did he really, ruin the thing that quickly?
No, usually the thing about, I actually read an interesting article about a plane broker to the not to the stars, but to the rich. And the thing about jets apparently is that it's actually not a good deal to buy them new. Like there's really, because of how these things are maintained and they are sort of often revamped on the inside anyway when a new person buys it, there's very little advantage to buying them brand new. So the secondary market for these private jets is just massive, and it's all about who you know and working with a broker. It's almost like I know about this crap. Working with a broker who knows what jets are not on the market, but the owner would be willing to sell it. So this guy, Jesse Duplantis, who I guess is like frequently trading in private jets, would call up one of these brokers and say, listen, I'm sort of open to something new. And that broker would then make a deal with someone else who he knows is looking. So it's actually relatively straightforward to get rid of a slightly used private jet. And, I don't know if they have to take the crosses down from the plane and stuff like that to refit it for whoever else buys it. But it's quite a market in and of itself.
Yeah, it's a horrible thing to do because he's preying on the poor, P-R-E-Y.
Yes.
Because, many people who follow him, I'm sure, are not in the best circumstances. Maybe they can't afford their mortgage payment or pay for, their medical costs or what have you. But they have $10 to spare, right? So the people like these megachurch pastors will say, well, if you give the $10 to me, that will plant a seed. I'll be able to buy my private jet, and God will reward you either on earth or in heaven.
Right.
And, he's just tricking these people, and it's a terrible thing to do.
The or in heaven is a key part of it, because if it's on earth, then someone would realize, wait a second, I gave this guy $1,000. I was supposed to get 10,000 back, and I haven't gotten it back. So the in heaven or in the afterlife is sort of a key component of this entire scam. These guys are disgusting, and it's sad that a lot of what they do is tax exempt, but those are the laws we have. I don't know what else I can say about it. Have a good weekend. We'll talk to you on Monday.
The David Pakman Show at davidpakman.com.